Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, December 16th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of the Times, here with Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of the Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling. We're here to once again bring you the week's political highlights. And let's start off in Lake County today, where there was some news in today's edition of the Times about county contractors.
Boy, and is that news? There are 60-some contractors right off the bat signed. Some of them are pretty interesting. Earlier in November, we heard about County Councilman Larry Blanchard getting a contract to monitor county spending. He's going to make more as a contractor than he is as a councilman this year, which is kind of curious. But the big one that's hanging out there, I mean, the biggest one is the $115,000 for John Buscemi as the lawyer for incoming
Sheriff John Bunsich,
Yeah, and the fact that he also wants insurance benefits, that should probably rankle some people, shouldn't it?
No, I think that is where that's where people are really beginning to sit up and take notice. Is not so much the money the attorney for the sheriff makes, but the fact that he wants to bring his family on board with what are really very generous county health benefits.
Well, and the other problem that raises is, what's the distinction between an employee and a contractor?
And
you might run afoul of the IRS with something like that.
Well, and the question is going to be, if he does it, then why can't I do it? Are we going to see, a kind of a domino effect and other contractors saying, well, if John Buscemi can do it, why can't I do it?
Right, and everybody in the county's going to want on the county payroll again just for that.
And it sounds like they're going to have to, if they want to get rid of that, they're going to have to rewrite his contract too.
No, I think Sheriff Lake Bunsich did make the point that there had been precedent for this, but I believe it was Councilwoman Fran DuPay who said the past is over.
Right. I mean, we're in a new era.
This is something that the people are going to have to learn. The past is the past, and the future is going to look a lot different.
It's austerity, not only for Lake County but for the state. We got to look at the state's revenue forecast yesterday, and it looks a little bit better than it has in the past. I think of $1 billion additional dollars in revenue. Doesn't mean that the state's out of the woods by any means, but it means that draconian cuts that were possible at one time might not come, right?
Right. Well, the state was facing a $1.3 billion, last I heard, $1.3 billion shortfall. So, the good news is you're only facing a $300 million shortfall. Well, they could solve that, like that, apparently, if what everybody says is true about putting all the teachers and college professors on the same health insurance, that would, save somewhere around, if I remember right, $480 million. So problem solved right there.
One of the things that I think we should be concerned about in Northwest Indiana is the drop in gaming tax revenue that's being blamed on new boats on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. Now we've got Chicago and its suburbs talking about adding new casinos. Chicago's been talking about putting one at Navy Pier. A lot of our communities up here have become, unfortunately, very dependent on gambling revenue.
Well, and Blue Chip has a lot of pressure already from New Buffalo. So
there's Michigan. Michigan's doing the same thing. So, we better take a very serious look at what's going to happen should Chicago get a casino.
Right.
It used to be the money was supposed to be earmarked for infrastructure, which would be permanent. Now they're actually using it to, do stopgaps in their budget.
And that's dangerous.
Very dangerous, because if that money dries up, they're going to be without a source of revenue.
Speaking of taxes, we ought to go on to the tax cut debate.
Going on in the Senate and the House. A lot of wrangling going on there, but it looks like it's headed toward passage. The tax deal between the Republicans and the Obama administration, which would extend tax cuts for the next couple of years, and also bring extended unemployment benefits. Those were the kind of the major components of the deal.
Right, and we've seen Mike Pence and Pete Blaszkiewicz, two Indiana congressmen, are saying that they're not going to vote for it. So that puts interesting angle on Indiana politics, where it's a case of, do we want to reduce the national debt, or do we want to give more money back in the person's pocket?
Well, it's interesting that Blaszkiewicz reasons are deficit related. Pence's reasons are that we're not making the tax cuts permanent. So
Well, I think I caught Obama talking about it, and he sort of said it best when he said, look, this is politics is the art of compromise. I didn't get everything I wanted. The Republicans didn't get everything they wanted, but we were able to come to at least some kind of conclusion to move this forward instead of stagnating on it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Senate, Evan Bayh yesterday, Wednesday, in the Senate, gave his farewell address on the Senate floor. Told his colleagues that he hoped that in the future that they could work better together. Speaking about the art of compromise. But Bayh really made bigger news this past weekend when it came out that he said he wasn't interested in running for governor of Indiana in 2012.
I found that very interesting, given the fact that a couple of the leading candidates for governor are from Northwest Indiana. You have outgoing Sheriff Roy Dominguez has not only expressed interest in it, but he's crisscrossed the state, particularly making his visibility high downstate. In an effort to get his name before the public. Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott probably a little more circumspect in what he plans to do, but he has said that if the opportunity arises, it's something that he would take a look at.
Well, and either one of those might be a good lieutenant governor candidate too.
Well, not for each other, I don't think.
Well, not for each other.
Given their past political history. Yeah, well, only if you want a tag team death match.
It kind of makes things wide open. I think on the Republican side, I think it seems pretty evident that Becky Skillman, the lieutenant governor, is going to possibly
and Mike Pence
and
too.
Mike Pence as well.
And he's a strong player in that, so that'll be interesting. I think if Pence went against Skillman in the primary, I think that they would expend a lot of energy and dollars against each other that would weaken them for the general election.
Yeah.
But the Democrats are already weak, so
Sure.
it might not be an issue.
And the same thing may happen with the Democrats. With Bayh bowing out, now you're going to have some lower level players, fighting it out at a gut level, and they're going to use it. McDermott has a lot of money in his campaign war chest. I don't know what Dominguez has, but I know he's had some fundraisers lately, and you don't have fundraisers if you're not going to be running for something.
Yeah. Moving on to other business in the Senate, our other Indiana Senator, Richard Lugar, is very involved in the current negotiations and debate going on over the START treaty, the nuclear treaty with Russia, and ratification of that. It's meeting some resistance from some fellow Republicans. Lugar is seen as basically the expert on this subject matter.
Lugar is the essential diplomat for the Senate. I mean, most of the senators can't even name as many countries as he's been to. So, I mean, he's got impressive credentials.
Yeah. And we've seen some pretty blatant stalling tactics on the part of Republicans, like Jim DeMint was seeking to have the entire treaty read on the floor of the Senate, something that would take hours upon hours to do.
What a waste.
And this is coming the same day when he and fellow Republican John Kyle were complaining about possibly having to work through the holidays, as Harry Reid said they would. It takes a lot of chutzpah to, on one hand, delay and stall and try to run the clock out, and then complain that you might have to work over the holidays.
He should be a football coach.
Well, we're going to see a lot of craziness in the
Sure.
the Capitol Dome for years to come.
We will, and we'll see how these things play out as we wind down toward the holidays and the end of the lame duck session, the end of this Congress. So we'll bring you future installments of the Political Roundtable and update you with everything we have. So for this week, thanks for watching. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.